Football then and now, a fun look at football nostalgia and the modern game intertwined. Join us.
A warm welcome. This is episode 106 of Football Then and Now, and I have got a returning guest, none other than big Spurs fan John Scott, back for his first appearance of 2026 on Football Then and Now. How are we, John?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Who'd have thought it? I'm back before Spurs actually win in 2026.
I'm sorry about the timing of that. I'm so sorry. Not a bad result at Anfield, though, on Sunday, mate.
Yeah, I was very pleasantly surprised in a good way. As soon as I saw that first goal go in, I'm not going to lie to you, Stu. I thought that'll be it. It's going to be a case of how many, but yeah, I'll take any point, however it comes at this stage, mate.
Good old Richie. The Evertonians were very happy that he stuck that in the net. I've seen a lot of posts of all lot giving the Liverpudlians a bit of stick.
Indeed.
What do you think in terms of Igor Tudor? What the hell is going to happen here, mate? Surely he's not going to carry on. We seem to have lost John, but I'm sure we'll get him back in a minute. So yeah, we're just talking about Igor Tudor. Obviously, that's the pressing matter of the moment. And I just want to get John's thoughts on him because I tell you what, I didn't think they were going to get a draw at Anfield the other day, so they did very, very well. I'm just while we're waiting for John as well, I'm just going to go through, obviously, tonight's matches. Arsenal are at home tonight against Leverkusen. That's 1-1 at the moment. I think a lot of people are going to say Arsenal will get through, but as you can see, I've got my Leverkusen top on there. I have followed them since 1997, by the way. So just while we wait for John, I'm just going to look through as well. Obviously, Man City are at home this evening at the Etihad. They're trying to overturn a 3-goal deficit to Real Madrid. I think it's going to be a tall order. Stranger things have happened, of course. You know, big scores have been turned over in second legs in the tournament before. Hello, John.
Sorry about that, pal. Sorry.
No, you're okay. I just kept it going just about the second legs tonight, but we'll go back to Igor Tudor because we lost you at that point.
Yeah. No worries, mate.
What are your thoughts and feelings? I know we've touched upon it at length on this show over several episodes now, but I want to get your take on this because I know you're going to have a lot to say.
I think overall, mate, keeping it short, I think it was just the wrong appointment. I don't know who at the club thought Igor Tudor would be a good idea. Like, he must have said, you know, I want to come in, I want to change 3 at the back and all this type of stuff. And I really don't think that's what we needed. I think we just needed somebody to come in, motivate the players, just get us over the line. I think that's all it would require. So I did find it strange that the first thing, like, you know, you can sort of maybe let him off with the Arsenal game, but when you see, you know, Crystal Palace and Fulham after, you know, he's going to start playing this 3 at the back and 2 wing backs, and you've got players playing out of position to try and make up. It's almost like Amarin over again, you know. So the club must have thought, that sounds great. I don't know who that was, but you know what? I've got a feeling, Stu, that the chap that's no longer there on his way out might have definitely had a bit of persuasion for him, which would have been Paratici at the time, who's now left, who was one of our directors. Of course, he was on suspension for a while, but that's the only link with Juventus that we have. Like, I can't imagine anyone else at the club plucking that name out of anywhere, you know. So it is what it is now, Stu. I mean, we are, in some words, like lumbered with him until the end of the season. And the thing is, I still think if we'd have lost against Liverpool, we'd still be there, because it'll almost be more egg on their face if they have to get rid of him now and bring someone else in. It's almost like, you know, it just makes them look worse.
Definitely, definitely. Am I right in thinking these people are non-football people, really? Because that's been getting bandied about. You know, the people making decisions now. A lot of people are saying if Daniel Levy was there, you would have had a better choice of manager. You know, you could have attracted people. Redknapp's name got thrown around. I know he's not done anything for donkeys, but do you feel they are non-football people, these people that have took over?
Not necessarily. I mean, Johan Lang, he's there, but I mean, they're just incompetent. That's the thing. It's really, I think, some of these people were taken on from Daniel Levy. So there's quite a lot of very odd dynamics going on with the Lewis family and who they're talking to and who they're handing down. My gut feeling is that this is just their own choice. I still think, look, whether it's a good decision or not, well, time remains to be seen on that. Obviously, we're going to see at the end of the season. But I think I heard Harry Redknapp speaking at Cheltenham last week. He said Daniel Levy give him a phone call. It's the first time he'd heard from him since he'd been sacked all those years ago from Daniel Levy. And Daniel Levy, according to Harry Redknapp, said, he would have been the guy that he would have put back in charge till the end of the season. So to give some light on that. But you know what, Stu? I mean, in all honesty, I know he's gone and done I'm a Celebrity and whether you take Harry Redknapp serious anymore. But the fact is, you look what even Celtic have put Martin O'Neill in. I really don't think it takes a great tactician at this stage. For me, just somebody who loves the club, that would have been ideal for me. Just one of those names. Even throwing out a name like Jurgen Klinsmann, just someone who really has a huge tie to the club that can sort of bring that balance back. Because that's the only problem with Igor Tudor. He's got nothing. There's no horse in it for him. He's gone at the end of the season. It's the first time in England, so he's not got that link with the club, which was such an unusual. That's why it's such an unusual appointment overall, mate.
I mean, it did make me laugh when Dyche said he wouldn't take it on the short term. You know what he'd be after? The big juicy payout after like a year or maybe 18 months because he's paying for it. But I don't blame him. I don't blame him not taking it. If he was a suitor, of course, this is all rumour and what gets spun in the media. But it did make me laugh about Dyche. It's like he just wants the big juicy payout for a longer term contract.
Yeah, that would have been. I mean, again, that would have been an interesting one, given that Nottingham Forest are down there with us as well. And would he have wanted to? I'm sure he would have wanted a little bit of revenge on what happened there a little bit. But yeah, I mean, we're not in a position to sort of. I think there's a lot of Spurs fans that want that sort of sexy appointment, if you will. But we're not in that situation, Ashton. I mean, this is kind of serious. You look at the points; it's no joke. We are absolutely in it. I know last season we finished in 17th, but never was we in a battle. It was pretty much Andrew decided prioritise the Europa Cup, and that was that. But this time, it's definitely a lot more serious. And I think even though the draws come, which is good, you can't. That's just one game, and also I don't think it was a particularly good Liverpool team either.
They're all over the place. I'm telling you, there's no cohesion at Liverpool, considering they spent all that money, and it's players with caliber and stuff like that. But coming into the Premier League and trying to do it all in one go, that is going to take time. I know a lot of Liverpool fans aren't happy with the style of play and the slot. They're really not happy with it. But again, let's not have short-term memory loss here. He did win the title last year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that the difference between, normally Spurs, once they get that one goal against us, they smell blood and they go for a second and a third. They didn't do that, which was unusual. And the closing down just didn't seem to be as intense as it has been. So it kind of allowed Spurs to come back into the game. And the most important thing was that he adopted and swapped the three at the back and went with two at the back during the game. And that, I think that really helped us in the end, thankfully, get the goal that we was after, because it was a hit and go whether it would happen. But you're, again, as you said at the start of the show, your man Richarlison, who is a fighter. He's one of very few at Tottenham that would be used to this situation, but he is a fighter. He's in it. I always mention Archie Gray's in there as well. Very few players I can say that about, but those are the kind of players that are going to get you out of this mess overall.
Definitely, John. Can you stay? What is your thinking on this? I had Gary Ward on last week. He was worried. He was very worried last week. I could sense it. He spoke about it. I don't think going to go down. I still think Leeds. I know Leeds drew on the weekend, of course, but I still think Leeds are in it as well. They're not out of it. I don't think you're going to get relegated, mate. But again, as we always say to you, you're watching week in, week out. It's your team. You know the inner workings of everything. What's your gut at the moment?
It's tough, Joe. The last time I really felt this was when, do you remember the year we had to get Jurgen Klinsmann back as a player the second time round, and Alan Sugar gave him a nice bonus, and he single-handedly got us out of that. He scored, I think it was like 6 goals or something in 4 or 5 games. I mean, he scored 4 in one game against, I think it was Wimbledon at the time. That was under Christian Gross. And I've got to be honest with you, when I compare the squads, I'd probably say that one had a bit more fight about it than the one we've currently got with some of those players. Obviously, we don't have that this time. We've got a lot of injuries. My honest take on it, because I really don't know, Stu, but my honest take at this point is I feel like if we beat Nottingham Forest, we've got a huge chance of staying up. Our home form is absolutely dreadful though, and that is the key. I think it's going to pretty much be down to that game, because I think heads will go after that. The fans will definitely lose faith after that, and then if they stick with Igor Tudor, we might well be sleepwalking into the championship pretty much, because I really don't think they're going to change. I know that sounds crazy, Stu. For all the money that's on the line and everything else, I just got a feeling they're not going to want to look like they made a mistake in the first place. If I'm honest, I agree with what Gary said the week before with you, where he said we should have made the sacking a bit earlier with Thomas Frank. I think that would have been a lot better for whoever comes in now to try and keep us up. But yeah, very, very. I mean, we're running out of games, and the other teams around us, like West Ham and Nottingham Forest, they seem like their levels are going up. I think the biggest difference, Stu, and it's not a knock. I don't want to insult Nottingham Forest or West Ham for that matter, but the big difference is, Stu, for me, looking at it as well, is that 90 or around that ballpark percent of their players, if they get relegated, those two teams, they're pretty much going to be there next season. With Tottenham players, I think a lot of them have got one eye out of our club. It's been going on for ages. I think Van der Ven's already checked out. I think players like Romero. You're hearing all these links with all the the 2 Spanish clubs, Vicario in the summer as well. Like, I think a lot of their heads have been turned, and they're not going to be at Tottenham in the Championship. So that's the big difference. It's knowing where you're going to be in a year's time, unfortunately.
Definitely. What have you felt about Kolo Muani? What's been your thoughts on him? Because I've seen bits, I've seen little glimmers of him coming from Paris Saint-Germain. Of course, they've been so strong, and he looked really good. I've seen glimmers of him, but again, it's the outside looking in. What's your thoughts on him?
It's not been I don't think it's been the best idea to loan. Again, it's that whole thing, that mentality from him, whether he really knows he's going to be around next season and all the rest of it whenever you loan a striker. But it was done sort of very on the quick at the end of the window. He's been just hit and miss, dude. I mean, he's not scored the sort of levels of goals you'd want from a striker for sure. I mean, Dominic Solanke's been out. He was pretty much brought in to keep that afloat. But then again, he's been chucked out wide. He's been up front sometimes, so he's all over the place. The problem is there's been no consistency with the whole team, let alone just him. It's very hard to kind of play to his strengths. I don't really think we do that anyway. But I remember seeing him at Juventus, and he was quite a pretty decent hand, and he could play out on the wing. He could come into the middle. He could kind of do everything. But I just think at Tottenham, with the current situation with all the injuries, maybe if we'd have had the likes of Kulusevski and Maddison in there trying to provide a little bit more for service up front, it might have been different for him. But he's, he just doesn't get the service, if I'm honest.
No, I get you. Again, I've seen bits and pieces here and there. He's had assists and goals when I've seen him. But yeah, it's like you say. West Ham. You say about players going if they are relegated. Obviously, Jared Bowen would be the first one. Would need to be gone. But everyone else. They probably will stay. But it does beg the question: if West Ham were to go, where would Jared Bowen go? I would assume he would stay within the locality of London. That would be what I would think would happen there. Just a little bit on him, because he's been fantastic this season again.
Yeah, he's always a good servant for them, and he always puts in like a lot of shifts. I knew a couple of West Ham fans that said that during part of the season he might have lost it a little bit, but every time I see him, he's working his socks off. And he really. That's the thing, when you get those type of players at your club, you want to hold on to them because they'll go a little bit above and beyond a lot of what the other players will do for you, and it sort of leads by example. So he's very important to them. I would imagine that'd be the last player you'd want to lose.
Definitely, John. Tomorrow night, what do you think's going to happen in this second leg, mate? Because is it keep the score down, or is it have a go? What's your thoughts on that? Atletico, fantastic team as we know. It was just horrible to see what happened in the early portion of that game. To Kinski, of course, I spoke to Gary about it. But what are your thoughts going into that second leg? How do you think they'll play it? What would you like to see? What don't you want to see? There's a lot of added questions onto that layered question there.
I don't want to see him put Kinski in goal again, and then have to bring him off the way he did last time. That's for sure. He needs a loan move now. But it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because you've got one eye on Tottenham Forest on the weekend, which is arguably going to be the big game. I know Forest are in Europe this week as well, but from our point of view, I think we're 3 goals down essentially here, and Simeone is going to set up and do what he does best, is play that very defensive football. There's a couple of players that are still going to be suspended for us for the Forest games, but they'll be fine to play. But I wouldn't want to risk more injuries, Stu. Do you know what I mean? I would not want to go into Nottingham Forest and have more players out. So it is a dilemma. I think at this point, listen, you're still going to have fans paying good money to go and watch that game that have probably paid those tickets ages ago. So you don't really want to hear the manager come out and say, well, we're just going to play a load of kids tonight, because essentially the pragmatic part of me would do that. But I think we've just got to try and get a result on the night rather than I just do not see us coming back to 5-5 on aggregate. I'll be totally honest with you. But I think trying to, even a draw, for instance, is better than, for momentum's sake. But yeah, it's a tricky one how to get out of and how he plays. But I would not. I've got a feeling unless we get like a really early goal, which could swing and get the momentum from the fans up, I feel like it would be just a case of just trying to get a result for the night.
The fans are crucial, mate. When they've been up and leaving, I've spoke about this. You've probably seen it on previous episodes as well. I'm going to liken it to us. I said this to Gary last week. At the end of the day, when we were really in the proverbial trouble we were in, the fans and the build up to them coming in, obviously the flares when the coaches were coming in and all that. And Gary said we need to do similar to what you were doing. I know it's been bad, but the fan base is so crucial, and the people in attendance are just so crucial, aren't they? Because you need them at the moment, mate.
Yeah, it's really tricky because we pay some of the highest, craziest ticket prices in the league actually, and yet we get served up quite a lot of rubbish half the time. And it's not that you go in there sort of like just ready to boo them. At the beginning of the game, it's like, let's get behind them. But at the same time, it's a bit of a give and take. The players have got to show some commitment, some fight. You want to see somebody, even if it's just running back and trying to tackle, that gets the fans up. And it's stuff like that we haven't seen much of. We've only seen it in small bits. And I think that's what ends up sort of where your fans will start to leave. I mean, when I was there last time, there's men around me literally, that I've been going. I see pretty much the same people. They're a bit older than me, but they've been going for a lot longer than I. But they're in tears. It means a hell of a lot to them. But it's got to that point where they just really can't see a way out. We've got a bit of an issue with the owners. They promise and say a lot of things, but don't really pull through. They mentioned they had this 100 million. Well, we didn't really see that activated at all in January, so I don't even know why bother mentioning it. We sold Brennan Johnson. We didn't replace that because what happens as soon as we sold Brennan Johnson, Kudos got injured. And that's the exact same position he would have been in. Do you know what I mean? So, and we brought in Conor Gallagher, which is great. I think he's a good signing, but at the same time, it's one of the only positions that we're actually strong in terms of numbers. So it was a bit of an odd thing. So really, you've spent a net amount of 5 million in that window, which doesn't show much. And that's obviously, when Thomas Frank was there and they were saying they were backing him. You remember they brought in Johnny Heitinger, an old player that you all know, Stu, as a coach. He only lasted a couple of weeks and he's gone. So yeah, it's when you see that happening in a professional sense, I'm not surprised I see fans disjointed and sort of not as united as they should be. It is the tricky one. I mean, I literally, I think it was the Palace game, mate. I mean, I don't normally leave, but you know what got to me, Stu? We were down. We were like 3-1 down at this point, I think. But I was sitting there, and then that flipping referee's radio transmitter went again. And I had it the week before with Arsenal. It took forever to sort out, and I thought, I've had enough. So I went back and just had a pizza behind the scenes, mate, because I was checked out by that point. It was like the VAR business was doing me head in, so I was done. So I'm a culprit of it as well. But I think at this stage, look, it's all about getting behind them. You've got to try your best, but at the same time, the players on the pitch, you would have noticed, Stu, that there's been a lot of players after the game not happy with the fans' reaction. There's been a lot of bad interactions. There's been people on Instagram, posting stuff like Pedro Porro, quite outspoken. And I think the biggest thing about this season, and it does sort of linger from last season, is that there seems to be a lack of control and authority from whoever's in charge, being the manager, because that would never have been tolerated under certain managers like that we've had before. But it does seem like player power has almost taken over a little bit. You can definitely say it. Even with someone like Igor Tudor, who's marked as a disciplinarian, I think a lot of the players have got a lot of hold over a lot of what goes on.
Absolutely. It's easy for me to say about us and how it went with us, but yeah, the 12th man, I sound like a broken record because I've been saying it all the time, but you really have to be the 12th man. And Spurs can't go down. It's me being a fan of Everton. I don't support Spurs, no affiliation with Spurs, of course. At the end of the day, Spurs, massive club, 60,000 seater stadium, arguably the best stadium, is in the Premier League. It has to be said. And there's never been a club with a attendance capacity that high go into the Championship. It's only Newcastle, isn't it? It would be catastrophic. It'd be absolutely catastrophic. And I just hope you don't go down, John. I really do.
Yeah, well, me too, mate. Me too. But good to hear that from you. We'll see how it goes. Look, there's still games to play for. There's still points to get. I'm sure there'll be a lot more ups and downs. But at this point, it's just, let's just hopefully the Liverpool game gives us that little bit of momentum, that little bit of confidence. Even though I'm still a little bit iffy that he'll probably might go back to that 3 at the back. But if he doesn't and sort of goes a little bit more for it, I think we'll be fine. I don't think it takes a lot of crazy tactics to sort this out. I just think it's a bit of a momentum thing at the moment for us. But we need to get that first win of 20. We need to get that off our back quick, because that's definitely not helping the whole scenario. But we will see.
I'm going to take you away from the circus of Spurs. You wanted to talk about the news regarding Chelsea. Of course, they've been fined over secret payments for players to unregistered agents and third parties over transfers between 2011 to 2018. Ramirez, David Luiz, to name a few that came in. Obviously, the powers that be, the owners that came in, brought this to light that it had happened, of course. So it's like a reduced fine, from what I've been reading, is what they'll get because they knew about it. They made it known that they knew about it and went to the people that need to go to about it. But just crazy because look how successful Chelsea were in that period, and they were doing these dodgy dealings for the players.
I'm still shocked that they didn't get more than that, though. I know that they've been transparent and everything else, but if rules are rules, I do feel like sometimes, this is why I brought it up, really, because I know you guys have definitely felt the point deduction over the years, lately, and we've had other teams cop it as well. Even Leicester now in the Championship and all the rest of it. And, you do wonder, is it sort of like, well, it's Chelsea, so we're not going to, because let's be honest, Stu, 10 million to Chelsea, it might sound like, well, it's the biggest, is the biggest fine. But then you look at what was involved in some of those, like Eden Hazard. I mean, how much did they sell him for? I think the 10 million is okay. I think if I was Todd Bowley and all the rest of it, I'd be quite happy with what's come out of it, given that they could have had this huge point deduction. And, I did hear a lot of fans come on to TalkSport earlier on, and they were, fans of your team, Stu, and other teams, and even someone talking about from QPR back in the day when they got like it was something crazy, like a crazy amount of money taken off them, and God knows what else. And for the last 10 years, they've been down there and struggling in that whole thing. But yeah, I think for me, it was just more shocking that they didn't end up getting some sort of point deduction from, I think, what was it, over the 36 charges that they found at the time. So that was the surprise for me, and it sort of goes back into what maybe we're going to eventually, this outcome of Manchester City will be. Is it going to be, because I don't know, Stu, they seem really harsh. They want to maximize the amount of points with you guys as much as possible, but then on the other side of things, well, we're just fine. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Look how much moaning I've done on this show about that when it was all going on, and we had not one but two. And I said it to Dan, the Man City mate, who's been on this show, and he was quite smug about the fact, that they've got over 100 charges. Well, we've got the legal team, we've got the legal representation where we'll get away with it. And it's like, no. But then Chelsea fans are now saying, I work with a Chelsea lad. He goes, well, City needs to be held to account. If we're being charged with over 70 charges, he's now pulling City. I said, I told you. I said, this was my problem years ago about what we were doing. I said, it comes back around now. I said, because you're involved in it. See, because they were all laughing about it at the time when I was bitching and moaning and complaining about it. But they've got to be held to account, John. We've said this over the last couple of years on this show, haven't we?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, rules are rules. So I think it just, it doesn't send a good message, I don't think, overall. When you think about it, because again, I feel like Chelsea, it's a slap on the wrist. It's like pennies to them. 10 million, they're going to be happy to pay that, no problems at all. So I think it's an amazing outcome for who's been sorting that out since they've got in. I'm pretty sure they'll be getting a bonus. Along with some of their lawyers and all the rest of it. But yeah, just a sort of unfairness to it, really, Stu, from my point of view. I've not got a horse in it, but just from an outside point of view.
Definitely. Yeah, we will see what happens with that, of course. Again, I just wanted to ask you as well, who's been your surprise package this season? Who's been the team that you've been impressed with? Because you've not been on for a while. A team maybe that's caught you by surprise. It doesn't necessarily have to be a team from the Premier League either. You can look across Europe. You can look at the Champions League. Just a team that stood up for you that done really well.
You know what? I'm gonna big them up because basically a lot of my family, Stu, I don't know if I've mentioned this, but they are Millwall.
Yes.
And I actually went down there Saturday. They won about 5 games in a row. I turn up, they lose. So I brought the Tottenham momentum to the den, which was fantastic. But they've been they're fourth at the moment. They've been third for quite a while this season. But they honestly in the summer they actually lost a few players. They got a lad off of us called Tanganga for free. because they've got such a big debt, they had to sell him. I think they signed for about 13 million to Sheffield United. And they do some really good little deals, but they've been quite a surprise for me to see them, up there in the playoffs. I would expect nothing less now than a playoff position for them. But it's refreshing sometimes to go and watch the championship. You don't get your VAR. You can sort of, when a goal goes in, okay, it might be offside, but the chances of that are still slim. And when a goal's a goal, you can cheer it at that moment. Here is a big difference. I've missed that, I have to say. But yeah, I mean, just from a personal standpoint, I've been very, very impressed with it. And just 4-4-2 is very, you don't see that formation an awful lot of times, but they're playing it down there and very direct. Something that I know it's come slightly back in, but direct as in just hoofing the ball. They've got a massive lad up front, and he gets it down, and it's kind of an old school style, two strikers up front that we don't often see a partnership anymore these days. So they've impressed me. I think in terms of the Premier League, my hat's off to still some of these clubs like Bournemouth and that they've cemented almost a place in the Premier League, if you think about it. But they do such good work with recruitment. Those teams now, for a while you'd have said, well, they're a bit of a yo-yo, but these guys have done such a good job. And I'm sort of a little bit jealous of it in a way, because I think the biggest difference, Stu, and going off subject a little bit here, mate, but when people talk about Tottenham and some of their signings that they used to be able to do, we could always attract the B-plus player, in my opinion. Someone like a Berbatov before he goes to Man United, or Michael Carrick before he goes United. We always had that middle ground. But what you find now is, because it's so evened out with the distribution of money, we can't do that anymore. A player now who's young will go, you know what, I don't really want to sit at Tottenham's bench. I can go to Bournemouth. I'll be in the shop window, and still someone like Man City, like you look at what's happening with Semenya, the lad from Brentford who's now gone to Man United, forget his name, Bruno, he's gone on. Like, it doesn't, there's an opportunity now for those clubs. They can compete almost with who we're competing for with players, which never used to be that way, Stu, but I do think it's a lot more even. You might have even noticed that a little bit as well, being an Everton fan, that I'm sure you would have, Everton at one time could attract more players than some of these other clubs. But honestly, I think over the next couple of years, it's going to be even more harder. And so this is why you've got to find different ways of doing it. But if you look at Brighton's system, with what they do there, and Bournemouth in particular, like, they just do a really, really good job of recruitment, and much better than what we've been doing, I can tell you.
Senesi at the back, that James Hill's come in. They got absolutely hammered in defence, didn't they? Lost so many players. Yeah. We've spoken about this as well, and the worry was they were going to be in the relegation. That was what we were thinking. But my God, he instills belief. There's belief. Areola they play as a team. Ultimately, I like Creepy Jr. at top as well. I'm a big fan of his. I think he's got a lot of potential. I know they kind of like rotated with him and Ivan Nilsson, but they managed to unearth these players. Just reiterating what you're saying, and I'm a big proponent of these teams like yourself. I'm really enjoying seeing it. Again, I've been very happy with Everton, I've got to be honest, but it's just been the home form. We've got a bit of a similar situation to you. We've been poor at home. The away form's been not too bad. It's kept us up there. But that first half performance against Arsenal, we had chances. But I think we sat back too much in the second half. That was to our detriment in the end. We were caught late on. We don't score enough goals, John, but we knew this. We know Beto and Barry are not going to score enough goals, so he's going to have to go in the market. But everyone's looking for a number 9, John. They're not to a penny like they used to be now. They're very hard to unearth, aren't they? So Moyes has got a lot of food for thought in the summer. The full-backs, we sound like a broken record, us fans of Everton. The full-back situation needs sorting. Why James Garner was playing right back the other night when you've got Patterson and Seamus Coleman on the bench. Garner's been pulling the strings in central midfield. Dewsbury Hall didn't make any sense to me at all. So, Moyes, I think Moyes has done well. I've got to be fair to him, John.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, and how have you found the new? I know the 2 times you've been there, you got beat, haven't you? That you've gone and watched Everton. Is that right? Am I right in thinking?
Yeah,
I'm sure
lost to you boys, got slapped there,
That's right.
and then obviously Brentford. We were poor. We were poor in both games, but again, you guys did what you needed to do in those games. We got caught out one after the other, really, and it was very similar.
How have you found that new stadium, though, Stuart? I'm just interested, coming from us. Obviously, we've been at our stadium now for a little bit longer, but it takes a while to start. I mean, I still don't feel like it's home yet, even though it's a magnificent structure. Vast improvements, as I'm sure there is your end, compared to Goodison, but you just no, it's just different. Like, you just the feeling around you, the fans, the way they walk into the stadium. Like, what's the biggest changes you've seen, Stu?
The biggest change is trying to get sound in that stadium. It was designed for atmosphere. The way it's been done, the gradient of the south stand being the steepest in football, as far as I know, and everything, it was so it'd be a cauldron of noise, but the atmosphere has been questioned, and now they're saying people have, been sat next to the same people at Goodison for years. You're sat next to new people you were sat with for years. They're making that a thing. There's a lot of noise in the south stand that I think that sound needs to reverberate in the three other stands as well, John, but I don't know if Spurs was the same with the atmosphere when you left White Hart Lane, but they're saying it needs to be a cauldron of noise, and it hasn't been. It's very weird when there's 12,000 more seats in the stadium and there's not as much noise.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think what helped Tottenham a little bit is that we had to play at Wembley for a couple of seasons, which was just everyone was all over the place, like fans are really sitting different. So a very, very hard thing to get out of overall. Like to leave the stadium to get on a train back and all the rest of it, it was a nightmare. So coming away from that, by the time the new stadium was done, it was like there was an excitement. Whereas I think if we'd have gone, from White Hart Lane to a completely different stadium in a different area, it might have been a lot different. And I think that's the only thing that helps, is that you're still traveling the same way to the stadium. You're still getting off the same stations. The same walks are pretty much there. It's just, it looks like a bloody spaceship in the middle of London. That's the biggest difference. But aside from that, it remains with that core, which is, the only saving grace. But I think it's got its moments, but it still doesn't feel, it was only 36,000 at the Lane. I still felt like there was more atmosphere. It was all buzzing and booming and jumping,
Look at West Ham. Look at West Ham for instance. That wasn't designed for football. The bowl, the way it's been done. The Upton Park was a cauldron. The bowling ground was a cauldron. They miss it. You listen to fans when they do little tidbits, with them, little vox pops and things like that with them, and it's very similar. But they need to get atmosphere in that stadium. It has to be, because we've always been. We were a feared team to go up against when we were at Goodison. Alex Ferguson said it was the hardest ground to go to. He said it for many years. So it's just saying about logistics. You're saying about when you were at Wembley. They need like a tram link down there. Because it's a 30-minute walk to get to Moorfields train station from the ground. That's like your first train station. They've not thought it through. They're blocking roads off before kickoff. People have been fined and all sorts of stuff, leaving cars where they were leaving them there. I think they needed to work with the council, and the council needed to work with them with the logistics, because transport links are an issue down there. They really are, John.
Yeah, no, that doesn't sound good when you lose a game, especially, and you've got to walk back that far with all those people. What I mean, it's the last thing you want. So, no, agree.
I know older people are not happy with the walking to the ground and stuff like that. A guy who's a season ticket holder in his 70s, he's been selling his ticket. He's been selling his ticket. He's just not happy. He's not happy down there, and that's fine. He'd been going to Goodison probably over 60 years, so it's understandable, mate. It really is. But we'll see. There is always going to be teething problems, but we'll see what happens. John, all the best for tomorrow night. I will be watching.
Thank you.
I just hope you can get a few goals in, and just because I had the first leg on last week. That was my game that I picked last week. But yeah, I just hope that they do all right for you tomorrow night. And as I said, I just hope you stay up as well, because you're too big a club to go down.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Well, we'll take that. Just a respectable score tomorrow, and a win on Sunday is the main priority for me. And I think we should be okay. Fingers crossed.
Perfect. Thank you very much, John Scott, who's been on this show so many times on Football Then and Now many times. First appearance of 2026. And John, just again, thank you so much for all the support, for coming on for us as well. You've been brilliant. You've been fantastic for us. And yeah, we'll be back next week for episode 107. This has been Football Then and Now. I've been your host, Stuart Palmer. We may have a bit of nostalgia again next week. My guest is pending, so I can't say any more than that. But we'll be back for next week. I think we'll have a bit of a preview for the matches in the Prem. And we'll see you very, very soon for the next instalment of the show. Take care, everybody.
Football Then and Now, a fun look at football nostalgia and the modern day intertwined. Join us.